Players, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Pop, pop, it's showtime. Showtime, showtime, showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone time. Oh, they don't know. Gone time. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Englewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues. Woo, shit. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Second verse for the hustlers. Hustlers. Gangsters. Bad bitches and your ugly ass friends. I cannot preach. I cannot preach. I gotta show them how I can get it in. First, take your sip. Do your dip. Spend your money like money ain't shit. Ooh, ooh. We too fresh. Got to blame it on Jesus. Hashtag blessed. They ain't ready for me. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? What you trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Everywhere I go, they be like, ooh, so clear. Everywhere I go, they be like, ooh, so clear. Everywhere I go, they be like, ooh, so clear. Now, watch me break it down like, 24 karat, 24 karat. What's that sound? Come on now. 24 karat, 24 karat magic. Don't fight the feeling, invite the feeling. Just put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? Tell me what you're trying to do. 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Tonight, I just wanna take you higher. Throw your hands up in the sky. Let's set this party on fire. Players, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. Pop, pop, it's showtime. Showtime, showtime, showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone time. Oh, they don't know. Gone time. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Englewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues. Woo, shit. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look out. gangsters, bad bitches, and your ugly ass friends. I cannot preach, I cannot preach. I gotta show them how a pimp get it in. First, take your sip, do your dip, spend your money like money ain't shit. Ooh, ooh, we too fresh. Got to blame it on Jesus. Hashtag blessed. They ain't ready for me. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Hey girls, what y'all trying to do? What you trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Head to toe, so clear. Look at
All right. Welcome to all our attendees and our panelists on our next episode of the Fuel Up series. Glad you all took some time out of your day to join us. We tried a new time today, so hopefully it'll work out for everyone. 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to be talking today about how to build a profitable and scalable, efficient estimating operation and process today. We've got a great panel with US Lawns team, and then also one of Attentive's partners, LMN, with Stephen Bennett here as well to join us. So thank you to our panelists. We'll get to some introductions here in just a minute. But first, a few housekeeping items like we always do. Would love for you to engage with us during the webinar today. So we're going to be together for 60 minutes. There's going to be a lot of content, but we're going to have a couple polls. So would love for you to join in and activate and engage with us on those polls as we go. And then also, we're going to be diving into, like I said, our topic today is estimating processes and how to set your business up for success. So if we cover a topic and we don't go deep enough, or you have a question or follow-up question, there's a button down there that says Q&A. So feel free to drop a question in the chat, and we're going to spend 30, 45 minutes on our content today, kind of trying to deliver some value back to the industry. But we're going to take 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the session today and spend that answering some of those questions. I will tell you, we typically don't get to all those questions. So what we'll do at the end, anything that we don't get to for all our attendees, we'll list those questions out and we'll push an answer sheet back out to you for any questions that we didn't get to, probably early to mid next week as well. So no worries if you don't get your questions answered. We'll make sure to get them back to you. So with that, I'd love to move over to our panel and do some introductions so you know who's chatting with us today. First up, Steve Gold from US Lawns. If you could give us a quick intro, that would be great.
Sure, Shawn, thanks. So my name is Steve Gold. I'm the technical support specialist with US Lawns. I was out in the landscape field for about 30 years before doing this, and decided that I'd use my experience in the landscape field and come into technology and stay ahead of the game. And this is where I am.
That's awesome, Steve. I appreciate you being here with us today and sharing some of your deep knowledge of the industry with us. Morgan, would love to have you do an intro for us.
Hey, I'm Morgan Self. I'm here with US Lawns and the Myrtle Beach market. I've been in the landscaping industry now for a little over 12 years. My background is property management, which gives me a unique vantage point when looking at properties. So yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Morgan. Greatly appreciate that. And last but not least, Stephen, would love to get a little intro in your role there at LMN.
Yeah, thanks, Shawn. So I'm the other Steve, Steve Bennett, Director of Customer Success at LMN. I've been at LMN for about 3.5 years now, but I've been in customer success for about 18. I did play around in sales a lot, sales and customer success for Coca-Cola prior to joining this, but I'm great at connecting with clients and making sure that we solve their problems. I'm excited to be here today and excited for the partnership as we move forward.
Awesome. Thanks for being here today with us, Stephen. Greatly appreciate that. So wonderful panel today. A bunch of different, as we were putting this panel together, I just, it kind of inadvertently happened, but we've got so many different perspectives from the industry with Steve's technical ability, and then Morgan with your ability from the property management side. That's a different view. And then it's obviously Stephen from the technology and software side and supporting the customers that use the technology every day. So I'm really excited to dive into our topic. First, though, I just want to address, we've We've made it public, obviously, that Attentive and LMN are coming together as partners. And just wanted to cover a little bit about the why behind it before we jump into our estimating topic. So really two loved and valued products coming together to really form one powerful solution. So LMN and Attentive coming together to give really commercial landscaping businesses the best of both worlds, essentially. So AI powered automated takeoffs and then structured repeatable estimating. So, what does that mean? It means really no more wasted hours on manual measurements, no more inconsistencies in bids, and really your sales reps spending time selling rather than measuring. So your estimators can focus on strategy and really not that tedious takeoff process. And we really crafted the content today around what we were going to talk about, specifically to where that integration with Attentive and LMN is going to come together in that estimating process. So that's one of the reasons we built this content for today. So with Attentive.ai's auto measure and then LMN's estimating and business management software, really the goal here is to get seamless end-to-end workflow for faster estimates and more profitable jobs, and really be able to scale that process so it can set you up for long-term success. So we're talking about speed, we're talking about accuracy, and we're talking about profitability really in one combined system. Really, this is where we believe the future of estimating is going. So later in the webinar, stick with us. We're going to share how you can actually get early access and join the wait list for really this industry first integration. So stay tuned for that. We'll give you some more information and some more details as we go further. All right, so let's jump into our topic, right? Creating a repeatable, high-performing estimating process. So we want to jump into that and kind of talk through that. So Steve, I'd love to come to you first here on this and really talk through, what is a repeatable, high-performing estimating process do for us, right? What are some benefits of just having the process in general, right? I've spent some time with some businesses that don't have a process. I've spent some time with businesses that maybe have too much process. What does it look like, and what are some of the benefits that come off of that?
So the importance of having a process in estimating and sales is it's repeatable, it's trainable. If you're a single owner, or if you're an owner of a multi person company, you've got people coming in, you've got to be able to teach your skills and your experience to that, which you've already applied to your estimating. If you don't have a routine in place, you're not estimating the same way twice. You're not going to estimate a complex on one side of town the same as the other, because you've driven that distance, you've got your mind off of it, you've answered questions in your business, and now you get to that site and you don't remember the things that you've got. If you've got a set process in place, you're going to estimate the turf the same way if it's the same. You're going to estimate installation of mulch the same way, those sorts of items. But I can see with the owners in US Lawns, it's most important that it's trainable, that a process is simple, easy to follow, and can be repeated.
Yeah, that's great insight there, Steve. I mean, to have a process, if it's too complex where you can't train everybody on it, it's really meaningless. So I think that's a great point to I always take some notes on these. So my note coming out of that is like, it has to be scalable, it has to be trainable, and you've got to be able to pass it down to other people that are coming up in the industry, essentially. I think that's great feedback. Stephen, you look at it a little bit different, right? You're tasked with helping and supporting the industry on having processes, right? And working them through that, making sure they have success in it. What would be some things that you would kind of add to what Steve told us?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, LMN and US Lawns go hand in hand, but I agree with everything Steve said. And I mean, from my experience, having a structured process allows for consistent estimating. Absolutely. However, at LMN, we want to make sure that you're not forgetting to add items to an estimate or omit them. You do that, and that directly impacts your margins. You want to be accurate, but you also want to be quick and consistent in that delivery. To the customers, but it also helps you set those internal expectations, like Steve alluded to the rest of the staff. And I mean, I've worked with customers who say that the owner knows how to estimate, and that's great, but who else can sell for the company? Nobody. And so that's not scalable. The owner can never take time off or focus on growing the business. And if they're the only ones that can estimate, that's not ideal. So creating templates, using something as Attentive, like as Attentive.ai, using LMN will allow those owners that I've worked with to replicate what they've only known to that point. It allows them to trust other people as well in their organization to create those estimates quickly and most importantly, accurately to sell that work.
Yeah, you heard, like Stephen, you hit the nail on the head with that word trust, right? So much trust can be broken in that estimating process, and I think we'll talk about that handoff process a little bit more later in the conversation. But um, that trust aspect is so critical, and I think that speaks to the process side of it as well, right? A process, not only what Steve mentioned with the trainability, but also that process can help build that trust in that process as well. Makes a lot of sense. Great. Morgan, what would you add to that? Obviously we've heard trainability, we've heard building of trust, we've heard it supporting, margins as well. What would you add to that from your perspective?
I think for me, because I'm more boots on the ground, I'm the one that's actually going out and handling the estimating and presenting to the customer, is for me, it's the detailed cost breakdown. So it's having that reliable information to be able to give back to the team, and streamlining it, I think, is the biggest thing, is having that info that it's quantifiable. Like you've got it right there, it's black and white, and there's really no question or guesswork in it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, Morgan, for you're out in the field, you're dealing with customers on a daily basis. Speed matters, I'm assuming, when you're dealing with customers and property managers.
yes, absolutely, very much. And they want this stuff yesterday, most times. So being able to have the quick turnaround while utilizing Attentive is really, really important. And it, again, I think it sets us apart in our market, where it might take somebody a week to turn a bit around. We're able to turn that around much quicker. So
Yeah, I remember when I first started in the industry, dare I say 20 plus years ago, it like a lot of times you got 2, 3 weeks to
mhm,
respond to an RFP,
mhm.
and you kind of knew when that cycle was and how you were going to respond. What are you seeing out in the marketplace now with like turnaround times from like, when you get that RFP to when,
Mhm.
you've actually got to have it back in their hands and having a conversation? Is that still 2 to 3 weeks? You seeing it shrink? What's the pulse out there in the industry today?
So I feel like it varies. Obviously during budgeting season, you've got a little bit of a longer window to turn the stuff in, but it's the stuff in the peak season where they want to make a change because their current landscaper is not, living up to their end of that contract. I feel like that's the point where, you may have 7 to 10 days to turn this in versus, a 3 or 4 week mark. So overall, I think it's the time of the year and the season. I think it does vary, but I mean, I'm also on the coastal market, so we have like we're kind of year round on our season versus companies like where I'm from. You have your snow season and you have your landscape season. Down here, we're pretty much landscape year round, and we see that kind of flux. But my heavy months are usually third or first quarter, towards the end of the first quarter. I see a huge influx at the end of the second quarter. And then again, around that middle of the third quarter, we see a lot of influx of bids, requests for proposals. So.
Yeah, so given time of year, it can vary, but
Mhm.
certainly they're wanting quick turnaround times, especially when it's this time of year. I would say, right, when they need to get things up and
Mhm.
running from a springtime perspective. Steve, want to jump back over to you. Just any best practices you work with many of the different U.S. lawns businesses and franchises, right? So, are there any best practices that you see or teach or glean from the group that you work with out there in regards to, streamlining that estimating process? Any bullet points or tidbits that you would add in there?
Streamlining, like Morgan said, that Attentive helps our owners immensely because it does the work that it takes the most amount of time, that doesn't require much thought. Measuring turf areas, measuring linear distances for edging, bed edges, bed areas. that takes hours out of a large project of doing that, when you can focus on your focus on the particulars, how the site looks, what you can do for enhancements that way. I think that's what's important. And again, setting standards, having a routine when you do your estimates, and having a routine when you're doing your takeoffs, so that you don't waver around, and you don't forget something and miss something important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think too, right, building, there's the takeoff process, but there's also building that estimate. So I don't know how many times I've had conversations over the past couple of years with landscape contractors that, when I say, how do you build your estimates, and we're talking about how to make the business better and stronger and, repeatable process, that thumb goes up in the air, right? And it's like, hey, I know what it's going to take. And that's fantastic. And I have tons of respect for that knowledge in the industry and being able to know what it's going to take. But, to your point, Steve, right, about it being trainable, right? If you always want to be doing estimates, that might be a solution. But if you want your business to go forward, if you want it to grow, you're going to have to bring those team members on, and, having something like an LMN in place, right? So you can actually build your estimates in a specific location. They can be housed there. They can have a repeatable process there that can help, further that trainability of that process as well. So some great takeaways there, on specifically creating a repeatable estimating process there. We're going to get to aligning estimating with sales and ops. It's a big topic. It's probably going to be a good portion of our conversation today. But I'd like to pull up our first poll here, and would love for the group to join in with us in this poll that we got pulled up here. So just give us a moment to pull that up, and you can participate in there. And also, while this poll is coming up, please remember, we've got the Q&A box there at the bottom. You can feel free to drop in there. And if you have any questions for our panel, we're going to do our best to get to those at the end of the webinar. So we've got our poll up. The question is which part of your estimating process needs the most improvement today? So A, gathering accurate job cost data. B, creating a repeatable estimating workflow. C, aligning estimates with sales and operations. Or D, speeding up bid turnaround time, kind of what we talked about there with Morgan a little bit on speed to proposal. So feel free to jump in there and add your answers there for the poll. We'd love to have you participate with us. All right, let's go ahead and close that, and then we'll see the results here as well. Just a moment. All right, pretty even, more even than I thought it would be. So creating a repeatable estimating workflow wins out with speeding up bid turnaround time, not too far behind that, which makes sense. Great, fantastic. Well, thanks for participating in the poll. Let's move over to our next topic: aligning estimating with sales and operations for maximum profitability. So, Morgan, I'm going to go back to you on this one to get us started here. The main question here is how to create a seamless handoff between sales, estimating, and production. And I've seen this like inside the same company, right? I've seen this happen really well, and I've seen it happen really bad. And it's amazing to me how much that handoff process, that first impression you give to that customer on that communication side, you can almost draw a direct correlation to if that account churns or doesn't renew, if it's a bad one, or if it goes really well. That handoff process I'm speaking of, if it goes really well, that maybe they buy more ancillary, or they buy more enhancements because they feel the relationship's going really well. What are your thoughts there on how you create a seamless process for that to actually happen out in the field? I know it's not easy.
Yeah, so this is kind of how I do this is, so with our team, we establish really great communication. So the first thing is handoff of the documents from the sales process, whether it be the bid sum, the attentive, any square footages or anything like that. And then we're looking at regular communication with our team. So I'm internally talking with them and saying, hey, these are some of their pain points. This is what we talked about while I met with them. And, some customers I sell within 6 weeks, some of them take 6 months, some of them take 12 months. And so you really get to know these customers. So building that strong relationship with the customer is ultimately what's going to help you hand it off to your team. So another thing that we do is we kick off a meeting with the customer and our team so that we're all on the same page. This helps eliminate any questions from when I'm handing it off to the team. And then we also do a 30-day check-in with the customer once I've handed it off. So that customer knows they still have access to me as the salesperson. But I'm always like, hey, I'm going to loop in your account manager. And again, it funnels right back to the big thing is communication. It's huge for what we're doing when we hand this stuff off.
Yeah, it's a common thread. Like anything that goes well in the landscape industry is highly communicated. And I view it as like whatever word you want to use, bottleneck, linchpin, whatever it might be. This is so critical to making sure it goes well. And I appreciate you sharing some of the hows, right? The sharing of the docs, the kickoff meeting, the 30-day check-in, knowing that there's a team atmosphere when you're coming together for that customer is super important. Stephen, would love to get your perspective on this. Anything you would add there to what Morgan detailed out for us?
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely, Shawn. Thank you. So obviously my team at LMN, the customer success team, we have a dedicated book of business through both enterprise strategic accounts like US Lawns, and then we have a growth accelerator program. So we get the opportunity to work with many clients from different size companies out there. And from time to time, we get to attend on-sites. Which is fantastic. It gives us an insight which we normally wouldn't see from behind a webcam. So we always look for points of friction, and we help our customers identify those, and then we'll have to help them like map out, a process to ensure that there are no gaps, and we help them develop SOPs. SOPs can be, overused, so it's critical that we focus on like specific ones. And then one thing that we gathered a lot, and we do it internally, is have meetings with all the teams. So productions and sales, they need to meet with every other department to ensure that those SOPs and those gaps and potential issues can be identified. I recently had the opportunity to attend a large on-site customer, and my biggest takeaway was that they weren't at the time having daily, weekly, or monthly meetings. And the best example I can share here today from that experience was that their company's office manager, like many out there, are responsible for that inbound lead management. Well, that office manager is the gatekeeper to ensure that only the projects that they want to do or meet a certain criteria are the ones that get passed through to sales. But in this case, the manager was turning away projects specifically because they were outside the normal, area that company wanted to work in. And what they didn't know that though was that the sales team was actually lagging. They weren't going to hit their quarterly objective, and there was no backlog of work for operations to schedule. And so because there was that disconnect, this office manager didn't know, and she was turning away potential revenue. But had that office manager been involved in those meetings, they would have maybe hit their fiscal goal for Q4. So just some of the opportunities that we get to do with LMN is travel and meet these folks, and I'm happy to share that one here today.
Yeah, great feedback there, Stephen. I mean, it goes back to the communication side, right? Of being able to maybe pass those leads through a little bit more if we knew what was happening on the other side of the business. I think that's one of the biggest pieces is breaking down that wall, right? That typically, whether you want it to or not, it typically builds itself in between sales and ops. And if you can continue to break that down, not only by communication, but a team environment, I think that's important. Stephen, I have one other question for you, just because of your viewpoint comes from more of a technology perspective. So the foundation of this question is, I spent a long time in the industry, right? And now I've been on we'll call it the technology side for a few years. And is there anything from your perspective that you feel like the technology industry does really well when onboarding a customer or just manages the overall relationship? Any key things from the technology side that you feel like would benefit the landscape industry knowing about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I found that poll a little interesting. I think the lowest response was job costing, and I found that was kind of interesting, to be honest, because that's a big one for us at LMN. Being able to see if similar work, whether it's the onboarding or the actual part of the process of doing the work, being able to see if similar work is constantly going over. And ensuring that you improve that estimated time moving forward is, vital, right? And if not, I mean, you can't identify areas of your business that need improvement, whether it's the estimator or crews consistently going over on projects. You need to address those concerns with either additional training or some sort of like managerial oversight. And so, yeah, absolutely, we see those opportunities from our side.
Yeah, great feedback there. So I think the two big things I got from you, Stephen, are points of friction. Let's identify those proactively. And then I love what you said about SOPs, right? Because I'm a big believer in minimum effective dose, and you can SOP yourself to death, but there's a balance to the right SOPs to making them effective, so they actually get done and aren't just a binder on the shelf, so to speak. Great feedback there. Steve, I'd love to come to you. Any other success factors that you think would help our attendees of the webinar just kind of identify in that, that sales to estimating to ops handoff process?
I'm going to sound like an old saying that's, yes, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but communication within your team, communication with your customer is just, you can't do it enough, and it's free. It's just the easiest thing. With the systems in place and available to folks now, everything is digital. Everything can be put on there. The sales developers will put the notes in there. They'll take pictures of the property. They can put them in programs. Then the crew leaders, the account managers, the production managers can open those and see, okay, hey guys, don't trim here, don't do that. That's communication. Communication is going to continue from sales 3 months into the execution of the property, even on a daily basis. Plus, as the company grows and they hire new folks or replace them, now they don't have to, nothing is forgotten. The same pictures that were there on day 1 are now there on day 151 for those folks. So that's a good handoff right there. Is nothing is dropped, nothing is missed. Digital photos are provided, maps are provided, clear instructions are provided. That's where your team is going to succeed, and that's where your business is going to grow, because they're following what the customer wants and hitting their hot points.
Yeah, I love that. So we'll clip that one, Steve. The communication is free. I've never really looked at it that way, but it's a powerful statement. It is free, and it's probably one of the biggest drivers that we can institute in our business. I wrote that down there. Thank you for that golden nugget there. I appreciate that. Beautiful. Okay. I think one thing I might just add to this point before we move on to, talking a little bit more about technology, is, on that meeting that Morgan mentioned, right? That kickoff meeting, she talked through sharing documents, she talked through a kickoff meeting, and then that 30-day check-in. One of the things that I've seen a lot of success is, in the vein of communication, but like deciding, two things in that kickoff meeting. One is, how are you going to communicate with your point of contact, right? So some people love text, some people love phone calls, some people love emails, right? Some people love all three. So actually asking that question in the kickoff meeting, if you haven't uncovered it in the sales process contract closure, that's one thing to determine in that meeting is, how does your customer want to be communicated with, so it's less frictionless, like Stephen mentioned. And the other piece is like, how often do they want to be communicated to? So essentially, obviously, there's a minimum effective dose there. Like, I am going to be in touch X amount of times with you, whether you like it or not. You don't have to respond to me, but this is what we're going to do, and this is our cadence. But I used to have a customer back in the day that every Monday at 10:30 a.m. I would pick her up and we would drive around every single property, right? And we'd look at it all every single week. And granted, it was a large customer, but she wanted in person. And then I've had other customers that absolutely don't want to hear from you unless there's a problem. And then you can determine a different kind of cadence from there as well. But I think in that kickoff meeting that Morgan mentioned, having that conversation about like, how do you want to be communicated with? And okay, what does our cadence look like? That kind of sets the guardrails for the relationship going forward, and you kind of help that account manager and that ops manager adhere to that as you go. I think that's a good success factor there as well. All right, let's go over to automation in driving estimating efficiency. So Stephen, I want to come to you first on this. Big question here, essentially. So, why automating routine tasks allows estimators and the account managers to really focus on, I always say, high value or high leverage sales activities, right? So can you just kind of give us some thoughts on that in general, just based on your background there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll talk a little bit about LMN and what we try to do here to help this out. So we create at LMN with our customers work area templates. We would refer to those as work area templates, along with the usage of production rate calculators. And the reason why we want to use those is we want to be able to get the job site measurements to become accurate on labor and material usage on those proposals. That being said, once that's done, we want to be able to shift to allow staff to focus on what's important to them, and that's driving revenue, following up on leads. And what I personally hold dearest to myself is building relationships. Doing all of that will allow those folks to close more deals. And the reason why nobody wants to not have automation is nobody likes data entry. If you do, we'll hire you because nobody likes to do that. And so once you combine that with an AI system like Attentive, and then pair that with LMN, LMN has your financials built into it. So what that does is that ensures that you're estimating accurately. We ensure actual profitability and ultimately success of the organization. And I know that the partnership again is something that we're super excited about and very eager to explore.
Yeah, that's great, Stephen. I'd love to just maybe spend a little bit minute. You mentioned work area templates. Can you kind of give the attendees and myself just a little bit more just detail on what that is and how that kind of helps?
Yeah, absolutely. So in LMN, we would create a work area template essentially from labor items, equipment items, essentially as well, and then material items. So we want to be able to gather everything you may use on a bid or a proposal. And then with those items, we can attach a production rate, an installation rate. That way, if you enter in the square footage, job site measurements, we can tell how many patio stones you'll need, but not just that, we'll take it another level further and we'll tell you exactly how much like polymetric sand you might need to go along with those patio stones. And then to automate some of that in the price list as well within LMN, we can round some of those numbers up to the nearest, whatever you need to be. If you get a discount for ordering a full pallet of sod, then why not let us round that up for you so that way you're ordering for that job site plus, but you get a discount for ordering that extra couple rolls of sod. So all of those things happen in LMN if you put the work into creating these templates to therefore automate your business and your routine moving forward. And then it's scalable. Everybody in the organization is using the same work area templates. Your estimates are accurate, and you're able to produce them at a velocity that you weren't before.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you kind of giving a little
Yeah.
bit more detail there, and it offers some guidance to the operations team as well once it's sold and delivered. So great. I appreciate that. Steve, would love to get some insights from you on, automating routine tasks for the estimators and the account managers. Would love to get your perspective. I know you have a lot of exposure with the different franchisees inside US Lawns. Would love to just get a few nuggets from you on this topic.
Sure. The by utilizing Attentive for our franchisees, whether they're existing or brand new, this is going to save them time. It's going to save, because again, they don't have to do the mundane. They don't have to measure turf. They don't have to measure edges. This will allow them to them to do more sales in a day, and then allow them to create more proposals the next day. The templates, as Stephen spoke of in LMN, it reduces the redundancy of having to write all the steps that are involved in installing plant material, that are installed in removing and replacing sod, drain pipe installation. Like he said, that these are great because I can estimate it, Morgan can estimate it, and Shawn, you can estimate it, and we're all going to use the same production rates. We don't have to remember anything because we've already reviewed that, and it's good to go. It's, dare I say, cookie cutter, but it's going to be cookie cutter. You're going to just use that over and over. Someone sees an improvement to a process, they add that to the template, and now the whole team is going to benefit.
Yeah, that's I remember back in the day when you're talking about different people estimating, Steve, right? Like I remember we did an exercise back in the day, and it was we had, I don't know, 10 or 15 of us that were estimating the job, and it was an exercise, it was a training, right? And we estimated the same job. We had the same inputs, so to speak, right? And I mean, there couldn't have been a larger gap in the numbers, not only on the revenue side, right, but on the margin side as well. There were different markups on other job costs. Equipment rental was marked up, it wasn't marked up. I mean, it was just all over the place. And so, I think that's an important thing to remember as you grow, and you need to standardize your business more. And if you can make that a repeatable process, not only does it deliver the trainability that you talked about before, but it makes things quicker. And if there's one common theme with today's business, no matter if it's landscape or snow or whatever it might be, the expectations for speed are not going down. They're going up. Sometimes it feels weekly, as well. So I think that's valuable insight there, Steve. I appreciate that. Morgan, would love to come over to you to kind of round us out on this last topic of automation here. In your mind, why automate these routine tasks? Estimators, account managers, what does that look like in your world? You're dealing with it every day.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of my key takeaways on this was it's creating a higher quality customer interaction. It's what kind of goes on what you were saying. It's a faster response time on our end, which makes us look good. We're increasing our efficiency. I'm not out, physically measuring properties, which would take me a half a day, and Attentive, I have it back in 24 hours, and everything is done. And then it allows me to focus on the relationship with that customer and to focus on the sales process of, winning that work.
Yeah, it's an important thing to understand where that time's going, right? Like if you can simply say higher leverage or higher value tasks, but I always, in my world, I dial it back to the estimators, and that takeoff process can be, I mean, it can be 80 to 90% of the actual estimating time. And if you lift that off their shoulders, and you can put their focus more on, what does it look like if an estimator is giving a second option for a job? So you have a scope of work, right? And then you give a second option because you have the time to think through the job and create it. And this might actually be more what they need. You can offer an option, or you move that estimator closer to the customer interaction. There's tons of estimators I've worked with in the industry that, when you bring them beside a salesperson, and you've got both the technical aspect and the sales aspect coming together to have that conversation, it's without a doubt going to raise your close percentages on a job. So being able to have that time back first is step one. But what you do with that time afterwards, especially with that estimator or that account management position, there's many more other tasks that they could be doing that will create more impact for the business. So no, I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for those insights, as we kind of talk through this process. All right, would love to pull up our next poll, our last poll. So please engage and activate here with us on this poll. Got a QR code here on the screen. If you'd like to explore how LMN or Attentive can help, feel free to give that QR code a scan. And then our poll here. So would you like to join the early wait list for the Attentive.ai and LMN integration? You can click yes, sign me up, or no, I'm sticking with my current. Someone put slow in their estimating process. But you can certainly click yes, and we'll have you on our list to notify you. We're working through the timeline of the integration, and by clicking yes, that'll get you on our wait list, and we'll be able to put some more information out as it becomes available to be able to make you aware of timing and when things are going to happen, and how these two systems are going to come together and get you some early access as well. So please feel free to click that yes, sign me up, and we'll take advantage of that. Also, while we leave that poll up there just for a few more minutes, we've got that Q&A box, and we're gonna quickly enter into our Q&A time here shortly. But feel free to pop that Q&A button there and punch in any questions you might have. We covered a lot of information that related to the estimating process today, so you can drop your questions in there. So just a recap of what we're going to leave that poll up just a few more minutes, so you can click yes and get on our list for the early wait list. But a couple takeaways while we keep that up. A few things that I mentioned. Your process has to be trainable. It can impact your margins. I love what Morgan said about having the documents ready for your customer, having that kickoff meeting and talking about that cadence of communication and the way of working and how we're going to communicate. 30-day check-in is imperative when you're onboarding a new customer. Stephen brought a great perspective on, identifying points of friction in your process ahead of time, and then having just enough, but not too many SOPs, and making sure that they are targeted SOPs. So don't just decide to have an SOP to have an SOP, but make sure they're targeted and they're achievable. Steve might walk away with the line of the day with communication is free. I feel like that should be written on every whiteboard at the top of it in every organization. Communication is free. And then obviously Stephen took us through the work area templates that are offered on LMN. So we can close that poll, and I'd love to get into our Q&A process. We have a few minutes left to kind of get through this. And like I said, we're not going to be able to get to every single one, but we will certainly send out some detailed responses to the attendee list as well. So we'll work through these questions. All right. So first question, and I might come to you, Steve, first on this one. How do you create a seamless transition from estimating to sales and operations to ensure jobs are executed, but executed profitably? So we talked a little bit about the communication side. Any additional things you might add to that conversation as it relates to just ensuring profitability when it's handed over?
Sure. What will help is before the proposal is delivered, the estimate is delivered, is to have your sales team review it with your operations team. Because if you have those teams in place, operations is going to want to see the estimate and see some photos of it, and then they can give their experience, provide their insight and experience on, well, we have another property like this. It takes this long because of this. That's a good review for not only maintenance, but also for construction, install, enhancements, anything like that. That will help, because now operations has put their 2 cents into it, their experience, and now when they have it in their court, they have the ball in their court. Now it's up to them it's their full responsibility. They can't pass the buck on to sales. Well, sales didn't listen. They didn't change that. No, we included you. That's, again, building more with a team and making sure that customer is getting what they need and at the price that the company should be getting for the work.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's great. Being able to have that information moved over, how it was estimated to the ops team so that they can execute against the plan is certainly critical there. Stephen, anything additional you might add to ensuring, that transition is not only communicated well, but also profitably?
I mean, a little different from my perspective. For us, it's more of, on the maintenance side, ensuring that both teams are communicating between sales and, let's say, operations or scheduling, to make sure that the schedule templates meet the required visits in the estimate, so that way we're not under scheduling or not delivering on our promise to the client. On the design, build, or construction side, when we use LMN correctly, we can essentially see how far out work is scheduled, and if we need to reschedule it, how far out. So having those meetings and having those talking points between the two different departments, divisions within the company, is critical, because changes need to be made within a software system like LMN. you know,
Yeah, no, well put there. Well put there, Steve. Appreciate that input there. Another question, Morgan. I think you could speak really well to this one. How can companies differentiate themselves, beyond just pricing when submitting bids, right? Like, there's a lot of people when they just I've seen people email over proposals, right, and never have a conversation with anybody. which is like the third sin of sales and landscaping, in my opinion. But like in your mind, what are some things you can do to differentiate yourselves when you're in that selling position?
I think putting yourself in the customer's shoes. So the customer experience is, getting to know that customer, maybe more so on a personal level, and then kind of taking those notes. So something that I do is I will meet with somebody and I'll put down a few key points, there we go, of what I learned about them, so that, when I circle back on them, if they don't need a bid right away in 3 months, I can check in and say, hey, how's your dog? Or, just learning and kind of getting more on a personal level with these customers. And then, kind of keeping that contact with them. So we utilize another program to kind of push out information. So just keeping our name in front of them, or dropping stuff off in person. Everybody loves, little swag things, whether it be, sticky notes or pens. We have the best nail files on the beach, that kind of stuff. That's just silly. In our industry here at the beach, property managers are about 80% female. So we try to gear some of our sales swag stuff towards, makeup compact mirrors, sewing kits, and just try to really think outside the box. We do a lot of lunch and learns to kind of get, again, just in front of them, so that they're hearing US Lawns and keeping our name in front of them.
Yeah, no, that's great, Morgan. I appreciate that feedback. I think differentiating yourself there is outside of price. I think sometimes too, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the speed at which we need to operate to get proposals out, especially this time of year for most of the country. We start to forget that we're the experts, right? So like a property manager might have a scope of work, but that scope of work might not be revisited for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, right? And it's just been passed down from individual to individual as they've kind of churned out of that position. But really, like, using our knowledge, I'm a firm believer that we are more of experts in the industry than we give ourselves credit for most of the time. And you have different insights into that property. Every property's different, right? And being able to bring those insights and help that customer buy from you as well, right, is like, that's a key differentiator. That's not happening a lot out there. Sitting down, having a business conversation about how the landscape impacts their property and what they're thinking about and what they're metriced on. That's a big opportunity to differentiate yourself in that sales process as well. Great. Okay. Couple more questions we'll get to here before we close out. Tons of questions in the chat, so really appreciate that. So real quick, one here is Attentive.ai's automated takeoff primarily for measurement of existing properties for maintenance estimates, or it can be used with digital plans for projects and development for estimating installation costs. I'll take a quick swipe at that one and answer that. So Attentive.ai has two sides to the platform. They've got the aerial side, which estimates or which does takeoffs for aerial imagery, primarily used, obviously, for the maintenance side of the business. And then we also have our blueprint side of the platform that typically serves both sides of the business. So if it's a new construction and you need to provide some budget guidance on what a maintenance project will look like, you can run the blueprint plan set through Attentive, and it will get you back your takeoff. But a lot of times it's used for the construction side of the business as well. So both aspects there. And it does have a manual measurement function as well, where you can use it for some ancillary bids as well. All right, great. Couple more questions here we'll get to as we go. Let me just scroll through here. I appreciate the involvement here. And if you did miss us on the poll there and would like to make sure you get on the wait list, you can scan that QR code and you can take it to either LMN or Attentive, and we'll make sure to put you on that list as well. All right, one last question here before we close up our time today. Certainly appreciate all the involvement. All right, any key success factors when you're working through your handoff plan me read this here real quick. Any key success factors that you could share on working through your handoff plan from sales to operations again? So maybe we'll revisit that one just real quick. We'll do a little round robin. Steve, we'll come to you first. Any other key success factors that we can or that we can help for the team on when you're handing that sales off to operations, that critical point? Anything additional you might add there?
Include the crew leader that's going to be servicing the property, and then include their account manager, the production manager with the sales representative as well, and walk the property. Have the sales, I'm sure, has seen part of the property. They've got the map. Have everybody walk around and look at everything: hills, hidden areas, passageways, gates that they have to get through. That sort of thing, to really cover 100% of that property.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of times that crew leader position is not brought in until, I've seen it, the first day you ask them to take care of the site, right? And that doesn't put them in a position to win for sure. So I think that's great advice there, Steve. Appreciate that. Morgan, anything additional in that handoff process that you would add to the conversation today?
I think kind of what Steve was saying. So what we try to do is, like myself, I'll be out on site with the crew while they're doing their first service. Whether or not I'm out there the whole time or popping in and out, just to kind of check on the progress and to make sure that they're following the sequence that we had worked up, just to make sure it's kind of going smooth, because first visits, I think, can make or break a contract. And just making sure that we're out there and there's a presence, I think, is really big.
Awesome. Appreciate that final thought there, Morgan. And Stephen, I'll ask you to round us out before we wrap up here. Anything additional on that handoff process?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a software side, if you're using a software, great. If you're not, you definitely should use one. But from a software side, I would say that making sure that when it goes from sales to operations, there needs to be some sort of internal notification. If there isn't that, then what ends up happening is his work might get not scheduled. And that's not great. That's not an ideal experience, not for your customer, not for the person who has to take that phone call from the customer saying, like, why aren't you here yet? So making sure that that process is defined. You don't need an SOP for that one, but making sure it's at least something that's an internal to do or a request to make sure to get scheduled. And then giving those crew members, like Steve and both Morgan said, detailed information. So within LMN, as an example, we could upload files, photos, job site specific instructions into the task notes. And all of that would be accessible from the crew app. So whether Morgan goes out to it or not, like, at least LMN's providing a software into these folks' hands so that they can open that, see what they're supposed to do at that site, see what a gate code might be if you're doing maintenance, having that gate code accessible on that application at all times, knowing that there's a dog that might, try to attack you, and, not to, but that information is critical for your crews to be successful and safe. And so we provide that with LMN. And again, just the team to team messaging has to be clear and concise so everybody can win.
Awesome. Concise communication there, Stephen. I appreciate those final thoughts. Well, everyone, we do have the QR code up. You can certainly scan that and get a hold of us here at LMN and Attentive. We've got your poll initiated, so we've put you on the list to get additional information as timelines become visible and updates on the integration come up and more information. We'll make sure to push that information out to you so you stay updated there. We did have a large amount of questions that we're not going to be able to get to today, but what we'll do is we'll list those out. We'll get answers for those questions and push those back out, like I said, early to mid next week, so everybody has a full view of the Q&A. Greatly appreciate you as an attendee and jumping on with us today as we close out this Thursday. And a special thanks, Steve, Morgan, Stephen, thank you so much for pouring into the industry today. Really appreciate your generous allocation of time today and spending a few minutes with us to kind of make the industry better. So certainly appreciate you, and I hope everybody has a great Thursday and a great finish to their week. Take care.